Welcome to another Roblox Studio scripting tutorial. In this video, we're going to focus specifically on using a click detector to create an explosion. Let's create the scenario first. You might ask, in what kind of game would I use a click detector to cause an explosion? Well, I'll tell you. In a game where you have to fight off the bunny army. Your game has players living peaceful lives out in the country when a forward scouting patrol of the invading bunny army comes into the valley. Ready to pounce upon the peaceful people of the land, the vicious bunny patrol leader is ready to send his furry comrades forward. You knew this day would come. You planned in advance for such an event. Unknown to the bunny forward patrol, you set explosives in place, ready to detonate at your will. Nearby, you lay in wait, having in your possession a detonator with click detector inserted. By the click of your hand, you will send the invading bunny patrol back to their bunny maker. In 3, 2, 1... The invading bunny patrol is no more, thanks to your knowledge of click detectors and explosives. So how do you make a click detector controlled explosive? Well, you need 3 items. 1, a part to hold the click detector. 2, a click detector to insert. And 3, a script to run it all and create the explosion. Extra things to add are 4, sound for the explosion. 5, some part or model that looks like an explosive, and 6, something or someone to blow up. Let's get our setup going. Our goal is to set off an explosion using the click detector. First, go up and select a part that you want to use as your detonator, what you're going to click on to set off the explosion. I'm going to add a sphere to act as my detonator. I'll raise it up in the air a little bit, just like I did on that earlier video. And it's a little big, so I'll shrink it down. There we go. I like that. Again, you can do yours however you want. And I will rename this part to detonator. Inside of our detonator, we need to add a click detector. So click the plus. I have this huge window listing all the possible things you could add. You can click this small button right here and it will change it back to the smaller view. Click it again and it's back to the large view. But we're looking for the click detector. You can click it here on the left, or if you're back in the small view, click detector is right here. Click it and add it to your part. Now the click detector is inside of our detonator part. And the next thing to add is a script. So add a script. And I'll rename the script to, let's go with detonator script. It only makes sense. Now you might think that we also need to add an explosion somewhere to our world here, but you don't. What you do need to know is the world position of where you want the explosion to take place. So the best way to figure that out is to add a part. And you can use the position of the part down in the properties window as your reference for where you want the explosion to take place. You can choose to have the explosion happen on the ground or put it up in the air. Up to you. I think I'm just going to keep it up in the air. Now back in our script, let's go ahead and delete this first line of hello world. The first line we'll write will be a variable to reference the click detector. So we'll type local, and I'll say click detector for my variable name, equals. I'm going to reference the click detector based on the location of the script. So here in the Explorer window, we have the click detector and we have the script. The detonator is the parent of the script and the parent of the click detector. So script.parent.clickDetector. Let's type that in there. Script.parent dot click detector. Now we'll make the script recognize when the click detector is clicked. Type our variable click detector dot mouse click. Then next we type in a colon, connect. You can hit the tab key and then type in the word function. Be sure to add 2 parentheses after that. Place the cursor just before the last parenthesis and hit enter. And this ends our mouse click event. Now the question is, what commands do we want to have run when the mouse click is detected? You might say, well, I just want to make an explosion. But there are some more details to it, like where the explosion will take place. How big is it going to be? Is it going to destroy the ground? This is the Roblox developer page for explosions. It goes into a lot of detail about how to use this event. I'll leave a link below to the web page if you feel like learning more about it. But what we really want to focus on this page is down at the bottom. Here we see a good setup code for how to create an explosion. Let's go ahead and highlight it, copy it, and we're going to paste it back into Roblox Studio, into our code. And let's paste it right in here, just like this. Now let's look at the code. This first line creates a new instance of an explosion in the game, and it sets the variable name to explosion. From there, it sets a blast radius to be equal to 60 studs. Any player within this distance to the explosion is going to die, and any parts are going to get blown outwards. You can change that number to be whatever value you'd like it to be. 60 might be a little big, so I'll change my blast radius to 10. The third line determines whether or not terrain will be damaged. Right now it ends in .craters, which means it will create craters in the terrain. If you don't want craters, instead you can type in no craters, and that won't damage the terrain. This fourth line, vector3.new, sets the location of where the explosion is going to take place. We'll choose new coordinates for our explosion here in a minute. The final line determines where the explosion will be placed within the Explorer window. It will be placed under game.workspace. But a cool thing about the explosion event is once the explosion is completed, it will delete itself and disappear from the workspace. Now let's go and get the coordinates for where we want our explosion to take place. If you remember, I created this block earlier, and the position of this block represents where I want my explosion to take place. To find that position, we simply highlight the block and then look down in the Properties window, scroll down, and look at Position. And there are 3 numbers here. They represent the X, the Y, and the Z axis. We're going to copy those numbers and paste them right here in this parenthesis area, just like that. Let's go ahead and save our game now. Click on File, go to Save to File As, and I'm going to name my game Explode. This part here in the air, we don't necessarily need it anymore. Remember, we only used it to get a reference point, a position for our explosion. So you can get rid of it if you want. You can choose to replace it with something that looks like an explosive. I'm going to go ahead and keep it for now. I'll anchor it along with my detonator, or else when the game starts, those parts are going to fall into the ground. And I'm going to change the color of these. I'll pick red for the detonator, and for the explosive I'll choose gold. And now save the game one more time, and let's hit play. And when your game finishes loading, you can put the cursor on top of your detonator, left click, and you'll get the explosion. Boom, boom, boom. Do it as many times as you want. But you notice there's something that's not quite true, and that is there's no sound. The explosion doesn't come with a sound attached to it. We have to select that and insert it ourselves if we want. So let's stop the game and do that. Let's make our game sound more real by adding audio. And to do so, go up to the Toolbox right here, and on the left, on this drop-down menu, we're going to select Audio. Then in the search box, you need to type in a word that represents the type of sound you're looking for. We're looking for explosions, so I'm going to type in the word explosion and hit enter. We are presented with a large number of sound options to choose from, so you can test them out by clicking this little play button. Alright, let's test another. Notice that within each icon, it shows you the length of the audio clip as well. Let's do another. That was terrible. Absolutely not. That wasn't too bad either. So select the one you want. I'm going to select this one right here, left click on it, and drag it into the scene. And when you do that, the sound appears in the Explorer window right here. I'm going to rename the sound to explosion sound. So then the next question is where to put this sound. You could just leave it in the workspace, but we should be more organized. So we could put it inside of one of our parts, maybe the detonator, or we might put it inside of the explosive part. That's where I'll put it. Sound can sometimes have a limited distance of how far out someone can hear it, so pick a part that's not too far away from where the player's going to be. Now that we've added sound to our game, how do we make it run with the explosion? Well, we need to add it to our script. So let's go ahead and close this Toolbox window, bring our script back up, create a variable for our sound, type local, then pick a variable name. I'm going to pick explosion sound equals, and then type in the reference to the explosion sound. For me, it's going to be game.workspace.part.explosion sound. You may have put your sound into a different part. If so, just reference it appropriately. Now we need to add making our explosion sound run down here when our mouse click happens, so that when someone clicks on our detonator as part of the explosion, one of these lines will be to play the sound. Let's type in our explosion sound variable like that. Then if we look over into the properties of the sound, we'll see that one of the property options is playing, and there's a box there that can be checked. If it's not checked, then the sound isn't playing. So we need to make that box checked, and we do that by referencing true versus false. So let's do that back in the script. So reference playing by typing .playing equals, and we want it to play, so we'll type in true. Now let's go save our game and test it out. Click back in our game here, and let's press the play button. Now when we click the detonator, we should not only see the explosion, but hear it too. There it is. It's working. If you notice though, when the explosions happened, this part didn't go anywhere. It stayed right where it started. And that's because the part was anchored. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want the part to just drop. But to make this more realistic, we need parts and pieces to go flying. So we need to turn off the anchor or do something different. The problem is, if I just unanchor the part, then as soon as the game starts, the part's going to fall down. But I don't want the part to be able to move until after I've clicked the detonator. So we can change the part from being anchored to not anchored in the script. So let's do that. I'm going to add a variable for the part. I'll type in local part equals, and then reference the part, game.workspace.part. And now we'll go down to our mouse click event, and we'll add a line that will unanchor that part. So part.anchored equals false. So the part will become unanchored once the click detector is clicked. Let's save it and test it out. Let's click play, and we should notice the part stays up in the air until we click the detonator. Then it should fall. Alright, there it goes. It fell down. But the blast blew it straight down. But if we keep clicking it, and the blast is pushing it off to the side. Let's stop this game and then take things even further. We're going to add a part that looks like an explosive, and we're going to create more parts to blow up. So I'm going to bring this part down to the ground. It's going to turn into one of the parts that gets blown up. And next we need to open up our toolbox because we're going to find something to explode. Probably like a piece of TNT. So I'm going to do a search here for TNT. I'm searching audio, so I need to switch that over to models. Look at the options and select one that you like. Then left click it and drag it into the game. I like this particular single stick of TNT, so I'm going to use that one. And oh, check this out. So there's a pop-up that came up saying, hey, warning, this model has 3 scripts inside. So you need to be careful because sometimes those scripts can be something malicious. So I'm just going to get rid of those. So looking inside of the TNT, there are the 3 scripts right here. I'm going to delete those scripts. And then I'm going to take the part out of the tool. So this model is a tool. You can see that little tool symbol. So I'm going to take the part and drag it out of it, then delete the tool. So now I'm just left with the TNT part, and I renamed it to TNT. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take the explosion sound and move it from the part and put it inside of the TNT, since the explosion should be coming from the TNT. And with that part, I'm going to keep it and turn it into, I think, a gold bar. So let me go ahead and rename that. I'll name it gold bar. And then I'm going to duplicate this gold bar a few times. There we go. Control D will do that for you. And then I'm going to add a folder to put all of these gold bars in. I'm going to rename that folder to gold bars. Select all of the gold bars and drag them up into the folder. So I've duplicated 4 gold bars in total, but they're all inside of each other. I need to pull them apart. This happened because collisions was turned off there in the upper left. So I'm going to separate these out. There we go. I have my 4 bricks. Now I'm going to turn the collisions back on so that I can stack them on top of each other. Get myself a pile of gold bars. I'll quickly duplicate more of these gold bars, and take note that I'm keeping the anchor option off for all of these gold bars so that they'll be able to fly away when the explosion happens. So just to quickly recap what should happen, we should be able to click on our detonator and all of these gold bars should fly out when the TNT explodes. But we have a small problem in that we move the sound from a gold bar part to the TNT part. So now we need to modify our script to have the explosion sound still work. The sound is no longer located under game.workspace.part, it's under game.workspace.tnt. So we need to take out part and replace it with TNT. Let's review the rest of our script and see if there's any other modifications we need to make. This line right here no longer applies, We don't need to change that part from being anchored, so let's get rid of that. And we want to change the location of our explosion. Before it was up in the air, now we want it down on the ground where the TNT is at. Interestingly, I can't left click on the TNT to select it. So I'll select it over here in the Explorer window, and I'll go down to find its position here in Properties, copy that, and then I'll go back to the script, and we're going to paste that position into this area here in the parentheses for where we want our explosion to take place. Let's run through our script one more time. We have our click detector, our explosion sound, but this local part, we don't need that anymore. We're not using it. So delete that line. Now we have our click detector function. When someone clicks on it, then we're going to have an explosion that's created in the game. It's going to have a blast radius of 10. Let's change that to 20 so it's even bigger. It's set on the next line to create craters, but we don't have any terrain, so that won't matter. We have our position of where it's going to explode. The explosion will be placed within the workspace, and sound is set for true. So the explosion sound should play. This looks good. Let's go ahead and save our game. And we'll hit the play button. Get things loaded here, and let's test this out in 3, 2, 1. Alright, we got a good explosion. But notice that our TNT didn't move. Oh, there it goes a second time. It's because the explosion was dead center on top of the TNT. So let's stop that. Of course, we have to repeat the test using more gold. So let's hit the play button. Goodbye gold pile in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, that was a nice explosion. So what if we now decide to even further increase the blast? Let's change this from 20 to 60. Remember, if a player is caught within the blast radius, a player is going to die, including ourselves. So let's give this a try and see what happens. Save the game and hit play. Explosion in 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah. That definitely killed us. We were within inside that blast radius, so be careful of that. Now, we don't have any terrain in this game, so let's add some terrain so we can test out the craters property of an explosion. So I went up to terrain, and I'm generating a bit of land for us to explode. Looking back at our script, we have this line here that ends in .craters, which sets the property of the explosion to blow up terrain. If we didn't want that, we could instead type .no craters. So here's our setup with our TNT and gold on terrain. Let's save this and hit play to see what happens. We should get an explosion, which also kills ourselves, but also blows up the terrain. Let's find out. Yep, that blew us all the way through the world. And here we are. The explosion took out the terrain, and if our base plate wasn't there, this hole would have been half of a circle down. And as you can see, our player was standing right within the blast range. That's all for today's video. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned more about click detectors and making explosives. Be on the lookout for more updates on the Bunny Army invasion. In our next video, we'll look at how to teleport a player from one location to another. I'll see you then.